Welcome to Martial Wisdom. Here you can listen to conversations on all kinds of topics related to martial arts. The topic for today's conversation is the realm of conflict. Joining me in this conversation is Coach Tony Blauer. Before we start, I want to share something I'm very excited to announce, and that is my Spirit Aikido online program now has over 200 videos in the library. In the most recent video set, I've released a series on the self-defense entry for Aikido practitioners. These entries use movements which every Aikido practitioner is familiar with. What I share in these videos is a way to apply them in a way that's very useful for self-defense. If you'd like to support the show, please consider subscribing to this online program. There's a lot of content I know you'll enjoy. Another option is to contribute any amount you like through the PayPal tip jar. Even small contributions are greatly appreciated. I hope you enjoy this episode. Now, on with the discussion. All right, I'm very excited for this episode. I've got Coach Tony Blauer on. Do you mind if I call you Tony? Keep it kind of casual? Or?
Go for it.
Excellent. I want to thank you for taking the time out to have this discussion. We don't know exactly where it's going to go, but what I really want to talk about is the realm of conflict that martial artists often overlook or even take for granted. They don't know much about it. They're maybe nescient or ignorant to what that realm is. And they fill it in with things like myths and sayings and misunderstandings that sound plausible, but are really not. So before we get started, all on that, I get excited about it, but welcome to the podcast, and thanks for taking the time.
Man. And that's, your theme and the way you described it. That's grounds for lynching. It's things we don't talk about, in the classical traditional sense. Listen, fighting used to be even full on battle used to be very structured. We'd agree to meet at a certain time, and there'd be bugles and ceremony, and whether from tea ceremony to a samurai fight to, a cavalry charge. When combat was very ritualized, you could possibly entertain like defeating somebody, just with proper training and technique and mechanics, and you can get your myths and stuff, built around that, but when things got like gutter level, like as they are now, a lot of that goes out the window. And it's the way, listen, I've been a martial artist my whole life. I'm 61 now, started doing stuff when I was 7. You want to believe that stuff. You want to, you read the old masters did this, and maybe they did, but the fighting has changed. So, if I said, hey, Tristan, you and I, let's go, I want to duel you. And you go, okay, you're going to bring the pistols. And, there used to be like a second standing there. If somebody cheated, they'd shoot. Like, it was so ritualized that the question that you bring up, which is so huge, it didn't even occur, because you could maybe make it through the fight because of the rituals. And it's like biting isn't allowed in boxing unless you're Mike Tyson, and then it changes everything in a clinch, right? But this is a joke that I make, that if we allowed biting in boxing for 2 weeks, everyone would get bit, and then they'd stop, because we'd figure out how to adapt to that. And that's really, anyways, I'm going to go down 10 rabbit holes. I'll let you.
Yeah, it's going to be,
reel me in.
There's so much to this topic about conflict and originally I thought about this discussion taking more of a, what are the realities of violence? But then I thought about it and I realized it's more than just the violence part. It's the conflict that leads to the violence that must be understood. And because if your mind is only on what happens when fists start flying, you're pretty much late to the game. Like you in a real situation, you are behind the 8 ball and probably just about defeated. And I think that's something where, like the sport fighting realm, you have that focus on technical precision on being a better fighter under, the rule set. You walk into a ring, you're about to get into a fight, the person that you're going to be fighting. This was scheduled out, you know about it. The reality of conflict is that conflict can be suddenly on your doorstep before you even know it. You had no preparation. You got up that day, you had no idea you were going to be in a conflict that turned bad. And so
it's funny you bring that up, because I just did this private military gig 2 weeks ago, and I, for my part of my capability brief to their command, I did a new talk called Violence Loves Speed.
Mm-hmm.
And hang on, I got a truck going by here. And so moving on. So the whole idea of violence loves speed speaks to, on multiple levels, what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. When we talk about violence, is that background noise crazy, or is it okay?
No, it's not too bad. Yeah.
Okay. No. Let me just close this door. Hold on one second.
Sure.
I think your audience appreciates the spontaneity and aliveness of this. This isn't scripted and choreographed, right? Like real fights, not scripted and choreographed. So violence loves speed. The whole premise here is this: there's a bunch of factors, and I think that's what a lot of people don't realize about my spear system. Is it's based on neurobiology and science and physiology and kinesiology and psychology, and I have intuitively followed those breadcrumbs since the 80s, and this is pre like neuroscience and that research, which is only about 20 years old. So that predates that by a full decade. And now I've got this eloquent language to go, oh, well, I'm myelinating the neuron by doing these drills in a brain-based capacity, and now I can sound super smart. But back in the 80s, I'm doing the same drills I was doing in the 80s. Mm-hmm. And when we talk about the speed of conflict and where it impacts people in the 80s, Tristan, I was telling people, again, not as eloquently, but in the 80s is when I created the panic attack, which became the high gear ballistic microfight. In the 80s, I took like the Frankenstein adaptation of equipment, a little bit of hockey equipment, a little bit of baseball equipment, a little bit of taekwondo equipment, a little bit of Kyokushinkai equipment, and created what became high gear, the force on force impact reduction suit. And it was in the 80s that I started studying the psychology of fear instead of the biology of fear. I wasn't interested in fight, flight, freeze. Mm-hmm. I looked at that stuff as post-mortem. I was like, who cares? We would say, oh, that person froze, that person ran, that person fought. But we would only look at that post-mortem after the fight. I needed stuff before and during the fight. So how did I improve pre-contact speed? Pre-contact cue development, because if I improve my perception speed, I decrease my reaction time. Mm-hmm. So I was looking at managing conflict, managing violence at a completely holistic level, but also intuitively at this brain-based level that said, and we ended up breaking it down, and we have this whole presentation called the timeline of violence, which actually speaks to your contention when you started off going, hey, you didn't get up today going, I hope there's like a sudden violent encounter on my doorstep. Like I'm sure hoping, we don't think that. So, one of the distinctions that I make whether I'm working with the military, with law enforcement, public safety, or martial arts experts, or the general public, is I talk about this Jack in the Box moment, that you're minding your own business and all of a sudden you hear clown music. That's a metaphor for something's off here. Our intuition is going, there's something wrong. And then all of a sudden, boom. And so you take the clown, and I used to bring to my seminars a little Jack in the Box. Mm-hmm. And I would have somebody come up there. I go, so the clown's going to pop up. You get ready to finger jab the clown. And then I'd start cranking it. And as soon as that lid popped and the clown popped up, the clown would always move before you could. There'd always be a micro flinch, and we go, fuck, right? And then fire the finger jab. And I'd make a joke going, even though you knew this was going to happen, a stimulus introduced too quickly will bypass your cognitive brain and your reactive brain kicks in. That is the thesis statement that, or the big idea around converting the startle flinch. But this all comes back to, I'm on a crazy rant because I'm so passionate about this shit, to your idea of that the typical martial artist isn't thinking about the situational awareness connection to the internal dialogue and verbal of like, what's going on here? Holy shit. What I call recalibrating, right? And you can calibrate leading into a jiu-jitsu tournament, an MMA tournament, a boxing match, even a street fight where someone goes, oh yeah, fuck you, back and forth. And then we go, let's take this outside. You're calibrating. You're taking your glasses off, you're rolling your sleeves up, you're squaring off. Real violence isn't like that at all.
Right. Yeah. And it's that prep time, I think, that, and even the reading of the situation. And that's such a huge difference. I mean, there's been countless discussions about, okay, what's the difference between sport fighting and violence? And I think everybody kind of will admit there's a difference, but they often don't fully articulate what are the details of the violence you may get into as a civilian person merely trying to protect yourself. And I know, at least within the Aikido realm, that there's a lack of examination broadly over that, to the point where the conclusion is, well, as long as you're not being a jackass or behaving poorly or starting fights, you will be able to avoid them just by being a nice guy. And right. I think that this is a dangerous myth in the fight. There are a lot of nice guys that get their ass kicked.
One of my most popular memes is, violence doesn't care what martial art you study.
That's true. Yep.
Right. And so, it doesn't matter if you're Krav Maga or Aikido. It doesn't matter if you're doing spear or jiu-jitsu. When it's on your doorstep, it's on your doorstep. It doesn't. And we've seen in the last year and a half that nobody cares about, doorsteps anymore.
Right.
Like, just the shit happens anywhere.
Mm-hmm. And I think about, I'm a big study of strategists and strategy, and I go right back to Sun Tzu, where he said, know your enemy and know yourself, and in 100 battles you'll never be in peril. And the way that martial artists often appear to me is that they get to know themselves very well, but they don't really pay attention to their quote unquote enemy, or what is right. their potential attacker. What is his mindset? How does he work? How do they work? How do they set up their prey if they're predators? Because there's a difference also between the guy that's had half a bottle of tequila and he just wants to get into a fight versus the one that's hunting, like that's sure. actively looking for a certain thing he wants. And unfortunately, they've got some really great, I'm sure you've heard them, the catchy martial arts phrases like Masakatsu Agatsu, the true victory is victory over yourself, which kind of turns the eyes entirely on you internally, studying your movements and your art and everything without comparing yourself to others, whether it's another martial artist or, challenging yourself. Like, what if a grappler wants to take me down? Do I train against grapplers, or that sort of thing? And this is where I was excited to talk with you, because you've made such a study of that realm, the realm of real conflict and violence. And I think it's a very necessary thing for, we martial artists to bridge to experts like yourself who have been in that realm and has made a solid study of collecting how it goes on, what happens, how do you really navigate those waters without merely just relying on your physical art to be the answer, which we know is a bad answer, just to rely on, your
it's got to be integrative. It's got to be holistic, and it's got to, I think when I was trying to make my joke about us having a duel, if you show up with a single shot black powder pistol, and you go, this is my gun, and I've got like an AK-47 or an AR or a Benelli shotgun or a flamethrower, and you're going, what are you doing? And I'm going, well, I brought mine. And, well, that's not fair. Well, like, that's a 150-year-old pistol. This is like today's gun. In
Sure.
other words, if you're not looking at how technology evolves, how violence evolves, how, you know, there's so many factors. And probably the most important thing, and not often discussed, is fear. And it's a favorite subject of mine because, you know, I tell people, if you can't manage your fear, you're not going to manage to fight. It doesn't mean you win or lose, but you're not going to be in the fight if you are mobilized by fear. And when you bump into a true predator, when you bump into somebody who's truly antisocial and asocial and comfortable with violence, it's fucking scary.
Yeah.
And you've all walked down the street, and you're walking, and then you see someone, it's a homeless dude or two guys that are part of, you know, you can tell they're part of some gang, and they walk by you, and you kind of like, at a behavioral level, you just kind of like give them like some wide berth. You move off to the side, and you kind of look over as you pass, and you're not like going, oh, that guy's 160, he's a junior middleweight, looks like he boxed. You're going, wow, like, that was your survival system's intuition saying, stay the fuck away from these guys. And every single person has experienced that, but then we move on because it was so primitive, so primal. It's not like when, you know, you're at a tournament and you're looking at who you might fight and you're sizing them up. It's so different. And I draw this, you know, when I'm doing my coaching and mentoring and like the seminars, I talk about events like that, where, because they're so scary that we don't use them as a stimulus point to research. What was that? Because the question is, if I had to fight that guy, I'm already so afraid. I'm afraid of the evil oozing off of them. But it's not a cognitive conversation. It's instincts and intuition.
Sure.
So if we don't explore that, and this is like underneath Sun Tzu's, you know, maxim, know yourself, know your enemy. The superficial thing is, I'm a boxer. He's a boxer. I'm a better boxer. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. That's so superficial, especially in today's age. But there's a million factors. But, you know, I've been studying violence and aggression for 4 decades. And I can get really pedantic, which is a deliberate use of the word pedantic, because most people don't know what the hell it means. And make people go, what the hell is he talking about? Get out of the thesaurus and go, okay, what was that? Or I can make it super Ernie and Bert from Sesame Street simple. And so I'm going to make something really simple. These are the 4 stages of managing violence. The first one is situational awareness. If I have no awareness, I have no chance. Now I can unravel that and tell people, like, what does that mean? Like, every talking head says situational awareness, head on a swivel, left to bang. But it doesn't mean anything if that's all you do. If all you do is memorize the fortune cookie, you know, you're still there, like reading the fortune cookie, you don't know what it means. So what are the drills? What does it mean to spot an anomaly? And then if you're in a situation where you go, oh shit, this looks like I'm about to get mugged, or oh shit, this looks like an active shooter, or oh shit. Like, if you've never thought about your contingencies there or what you would do, and it's amazing because there's always multiple options. So you can't just memorize one.
Right.
And so there's the 4 stages of managing violence. Situational awareness, no chance. The moment you realize that you are in a truly violent encounter, and I'm not talking about, I break this down into 4 categories. Traditional martial arts, I can have performance anxiety getting my black belt test.
Right.
I'm in front of and like, I've gone in to talk to martial artists going, hey, I do this special block on fear management. Oh, no, we're good. No, thanks. You don't even hear about it? Yeah, we do fear management with our students. Oh, really? Curious, how? Well, you know, when they test, it's in front of all the black belts and they've got to fight for this and they've got to do that. I go, no, not the same. Okay, but okay, you don't want to talk about it, fine. So number two is actually recognizing the fear spike, because fear afflicts performance. In 1993, I wrote an article for Law Enforcement World called The Theory of Presumed Compliance. And in it, the most important part of that was this connection between our emotional, psychological, and biomechanic, that tactical trinity. How we feel affects how we think affects how we feel, both influence how and when we move. So when you look in, when I talk about evidence-based self-defense training, I'm looking at, show me CCTV of people doing this in a violent encounter. And what you'll find is most of what we practice never manifests in a real violent encounter. And the answer isn't because the individual doesn't have the motor skills, the neural patterns. It's not because they don't know how to do wax on, wax off and all the movements.
Or the
It's because fear interferes. People don't understand the neurobiology of fear and what it does. When a violent, dangerous stimulus is introduced too quickly, executive function gets hijacked. Executive function is what allows you to access your complex motor skills. Your cognitive brain. Your cognitive brain is where you store neuromuscular relationships, the neural patterns to, oh, I'm going to do this rising block and punch this guy here. And you could have done that in a tournament. You could have done that in a certain type of fight. But when it's sudden violence coming at you, your reactive brain can hijack your cognitive brain. And if you don't think about that, that's a holy shit moment. And I tell people, it doesn't matter how good a driver you are. If somebody hits you, you're in a car accident. So that sucker punch, that sudden stab, that getting jumped is like somebody ramming into you in a car. It doesn't matter that you're a good driver. And this is that fallacy where martial artists go, well, I'm really good and I'll just do this. Well, if all it took was being a good driver, nobody would ever get in a car accident.
Right.
So it's a really interesting metaphor. And then the beautiful serendipitous element of the metaphor is that if I go to attack you and you're truly scared, however long you've been training Aikido will be superseded by your body's primal startle flinch, where if you turned around and I was coming at you at a shot, you're not doing this. Your hands are coming up, finger splayed, covered ahead, push away danger. And so we've looked at that for decades. And now using the same car accident metaphor, we go, your startle flinch is the equivalent of an organic airbag. And it's a wonderful serendipity. But anyways,
I do like that equivalent.
So let me just, I'm rambling here, but the 4 stages. When you recognize that you're in real danger, you will get a fear spike. And a lot of people in our community has a lot of macho type A energy to it. And that puts you in more danger, not thinking that vulnerability is a weakness. But the reality is, it's when we recognize that we are vulnerable that we can begin to protect those areas. And the vulnerabilities are emotional, psychological, physical. What is my emotional arsenal? What's my psychological arsenal? What's my physical arsenal? For most of the martial art world, our focus is on the physical. And when some of the great masters say, to know yourself, blah, 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 one's true self emerges, blah, 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 not making fun, just trying to tell you, like, that's the spiritual self-actualization component to a lifelong practice of anything. It can happen more dynamically through martial arts because there's risk and danger and but you could probably create a self-awareness / self-actualization / organic enlightenment if you're a writer, if you're a painter, if you're a jogger, right? It's just something you do every day, no matter what. And then those moments where you go, I want to quit, and you keep going on, you discover resilience, you discover discipline, you discover mental toughness. And those are the hallmarks of self-actualization. But I digress. 4 stages. I need situational awareness, no chance. You can be the greatest fighter in number 4, the physical skill set, and you go, I'm a black belt in every single and somebody sucker punches you. It's the jack in the box moment, you get surprised. So the fear spike is what's left out of a lot. Everyone talks about self-awareness, but people don't talk about what happens at a physiological level, at the neurobiology level. So, but the fear spike needs to be managed, because if I fixate on the fear, I don't get back in the fight. So stage 3 is fear management.
Mhm.
Stage 2, fear spike, is self-awareness. Oh, fuck. My state has changed. I've gone from parasympathetic to sympathetic. I'm vertically breathing. I'm reducing the blood flow to my brain. Obviously, you're not thinking these things. It's just understanding what happens. And now you go, why are you panicking here? Why didn't you draw your weapon? Why didn't you throw that punch? Why didn't you block that? And then when you decode it, interviewing victims of violence, as I did for decades, you realize they ultimately, when you peel the onion, they say something like, I was scared shitless. I was frozen with fear. I was frozen. I didn't know what to do. I forgot all my moves. So stage 1, man, is
this can happen to people with a remarkable level of training here in this.
Oh my God, yeah.
I know that there was a great story from Greg Nelson, world famous MMA trainer, one of the best martial artists in the world. He said he had a guy pull a knife on him and he grabbed the guy's arm and then forgot everything he knew about martial arts just because it was such a high.
And kudos to Greg for being that honest. He is one of the great,
absolutely.
He's one of the great coaches.
Yeah.
And that's what we need in this industry. And it's one of the things. So, I work with a lot of self-defense trainers and coaches who, and it takes time, listening to my No Fear podcast or reading some stuff, realize they've got a whole bunch of assets and tools they've developed, but they're missing some elements, some behavioral elements, some connection to scenario training, something in the fear management. And they thankfully, and I'm grateful for it, come and train with us. And I tell them, hey, good information doesn't displace other good information.
Right.
If you're really good, you're still really good. You're just, you're just missing something. Not a big deal.
Right.
It's having that honesty, that integrity, that transparency to do something about it, especially if you've got people paying you to guide them and advise them.
Sure.
Don't pretend you know everything. So the last stage there then is functional movement. So stage 1, I need to have effective, intelligent situational awareness. What is that? That means I need to understand scenarios. I need to understand attacks. That's going to change. If I'm a police officer, that changes. If I'm a citizen, that changes. How you think and deploy movement patterns. If you turn the corner and there's a mostly peaceful protest with a bunch of people all dressed in black with helmets on and masks on, and for you suddenly it's Antifa. What are you doing? Right? That's very different than you come out from a bar and there's a guy leaning on your car like this, and you're like, hey man, can I help you? And now, like, this might turn into a death match, but you're not fighting 25 people with baseball bats.
Right.
So situational awareness isn't just head on a swivel. It's what are the likely threats I might face based on where I live and my routine, et cetera.
Sure.
Number 2, fear spike. Because if I said to you, Tristan, I signed you up for this tough man competition Friday night. It's Aikido versus some street fighting boxing guy. You're wearing 16-ounce gloves. You might go, I'm not going to do that. I have a spiritual practice. I go, it's too late. You're done. You're going. We're filming it. Right. You're going to be shitting your pants because it's a fight. That's normal. That's what a lot of people don't realize is anything where you put yourself out there and you're judging yourself and other people judging you is going to create an adrenaline dump, which is going to be a non-clinical level of anxiety. Right. You're worried about the future. No shit. Right. I'm going to punch you in the face. You're going to punch me in the face. I have concerns. No shit. And people can't talk about that. Right. So I've got it. I can't coach you and you can't coach yourself if you can't recognize your fear, because you need to make fear your fuel, not your backseat driver going, you suck. Look how scared you are. And then, so the third stage is fear management, which is an entire art and science. And then the fourth stage is, now, if I understand how to make fear my fuel and manage my fear, I can now direct my body to do what it needs to do, given these factors. We're talking about real violence on this show, what I'm about to do needs to be morally, ethically, legally sound. right?
Oh, and tactically sound, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, but the tactical, not to sound contrarian, the tactical informs itself if you have the inner calm to be morally, ethically, legally sound. So legally, meaning force must parallel danger. If all I did, I said, hey, Aikido is really good, but you don't know how to break somebody's knee with a side kick, so I'm going to work on that with you for a year, and I create the neural patterns for that. And then, somebody goes, hey man, give me your bicycle,
Yeah.
and you're like, no. He grabs your bike, wow, and you break his knee. Somebody might go, like, that's a bit of excessive force. It was like a 12-year-old kid trying to steal your bike.
Sure.
So you can have the neural patterns. I remember years ago seeing a video series where literally everything ended with somebody breaking somebody's neck. It was some art. Do you remember that? I mean, I don't like there was
vaguely, but I mean, there are many arts that seem to have that. They want to take everything to that. I need to end my opponent.
And there's, I'm not going to mention names because some of them were popular and some of them were contemporary, but in every demo, somebody dies. And I go, like, someone goes, hey, what do you think about this? And I go, yeah, that's teaching people to murder other humans. Yeah, no, I'm not down with that.
Right. I mean, we do need to have an appropriate response, not an over-the-top, inappropriate level of response to a given.
Look, if you're practicing things that are like 92 punch combinations, 97 stabs, 97 strikes, 23, if this is your head and I go, hey man, whack, and I nail the guy here with a bottle in the face, and he goes down right away. Depending on what was happening, I still lacerated his face with a bottle. I maybe popped an eye out or cut his eyeball. And in a litigious world, I'm responsible for that. Very different if I went whack and hit the guy with a back fist and he's got a bloody nose, and I go, how do you like them apples, right? Right. So but it was the same biomechanic movement. In one case, I had a bottle in my hand that you're responsible for what you do, either in bed at night when you're staring at the ceiling, and or if it was filmed in this very, everyone filming everything world. But for me, it's the moral. That's why I always say everything we teach is a moral, ethical, and legal's last. It's got to be, if you look around my website, you'll see language like good humans, good Samaritans, courageous bystanders, because that's really who I want to talk to. I don't want to talk to street fighters. I teach people how to not fight, not how to fight.
And that was a parallel that in seeing your work, that I felt Aikido is very similar in that regard. People that study Aikido do not want to turn themselves into fighters or monsters or, a beast type. But we do, I shouldn't say we, because I can't say I represent all of Aikido practitioners, but to me, it's about ending fights, not indulging in them, not starting them. Yeah. We're there to control, put an end to them as quickly as possible. And within doing that, you have to understand what a fight is. You have to understand how it works if you are going to shut it down. The same way that if you wanted to learn how to handle rattlesnakes, you learn how they move, how they behave. You can read whether they're agitated or not, so you don't get bit. And if you know those things and practice them and learn them, you won't get nervous dealing with a snake, even though an average person would be terrified. That's kind of how I look at it.
Sounds like you have some experience with that.
A little bit, not with rattlesnakes, but I can appreciate, and this is I think it covers into that fear. Anybody, whether they've seen a live rattlesnake or not, if you hear that rattle, you will, your body.
Yeah. And I think part of that, it was funny because I just posted today something about caveman kung fu, caveman karate, caveman combatives. I don't know if you read my Instagram today.
I did not see it. I'm not on Instagram, so
no, you're lucky. But
I craft my luck.
Yeah, it's man, I wish I could. This is not a good sentence because I could, but I wish I could just cut out all social media. But it's a way for me to communicate with people because everyone's on it. It's a necessary evil to maintain and sustain my business.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just posted something about this epiphany that I had, where everyone's always going, well, what's the best art? You know, like if I'm on a kung fu show, surely it's not Aikido, right? And if I'm MMA, it's not Aikido. And if I'm a boxer, surely it's not Aikido, you know. And so we all have an unconscious bias as we gravitate to the art that resonates with our personality and our beliefs and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
Having said that, you know, if we don't understand, it's like this guy collects knives, this guy collects swords, this guy collects guns, this guy collects spears. If part of your collecting of these weapon systems also includes being able to protect your family and your property and your home, but you never practice that, you're just doing, you know, archaic movements to, you know, then you can't necessarily transcend, you can't make that shift. But the biggest link is what I talked about earlier, is that how I feel affects how I think affects how I feel, both influence how and when I move. That connection is a very kind of poetic way to talk about the interference neurobiology has on movement patterns. So there's no such thing as muscle memory in the real world, according to me, right? Muscles don't have memories. There's neural pathways, right. There's neurons, you've educated them, and then you need to have awareness. Like if you go for a run, it's not because your quadriceps woke up and said, like you didn't go, hey, what's going on? My legs are moving out. Oh, I guess I'm going for a run, right? You need to say to yourself, I should go for a run for today. And then part of your brain says, now you don't feel like running, just stay in bed. And then you go, well, I got a fight coming up, or I got to train, or I got to lose weight, or no, this is my gig. It's a whole conversation while you coach yourself to put your frickin' shoes on and go for a run, unless you're one of those freaks that just loves running all the time. But I wanted to make a point to your listeners that there's no such a thing as actual muscle memory. And a lot of martial artists say, well, if I get just an attack like that, my muscle memory will kick in. If you don't have awareness that the attack is coming, it doesn't matter. So are you releasing the video to your audience, or is it just audio?
No, there will be video.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So as an example, if you guys are watching me now, and I said to you, okay, so hang on, I just got to adjust something. And I said to you guys, you know, what would you do if a guy presented a knife at you? What's the Aikido answer if a guy sticks a knife at you? And what's the typical answer, Tristan? So you're talking, you just looked away. Now look at the camera. There's a fucking knife. Now it's right there. Right. And now you're like, don't fuck. Oh shit. And I'm going, don't fucking move. Give me your wallet now. Mm-hmm. But if you look back at the video, when I said to you, what's a typical answer? You did this. You took your eyes off me. You looked up and to the right so you could visualize it. That's our cognitive brain downloading a picture. Think of it as the software of the counter to this. When that stimulus is introduced too quickly, hang on a sec. And something else comes up, right? And now suddenly I got my camera's over here. And now suddenly, oh, he's got a gun, he's got a knife, he's got a, our brain goes, what the fuck? And it tries to download the correct movement.
Right.
If there's an emotional psychological glitch, we don't have direct access to the complex motor skill. And this is what I mean by evidence-based self-defense. When I look at trained cops, trained military people experiencing sudden violent resistance, we see primal gross motor movement. So I'm tying this to this post I made today about what I called Caveman Combatives, that I said to myself, I asked this question, how did cavemen fight? Because how old's the oldest recorded school of martial arts? Was that something in India 3,000 or 4,000 years ago?
You're talking what, 1,000 years? I think the first recorded account of a fight was like 3,000 years old. So who knows when, sometime after that, they, you know, some sort of school of fighting. I mean, which goes back to ancient Greece, at least. So
yeah. So get this: the oldest spearhead is estimated to be about 400,000 years old.
Okay,
that's fucking long ago. Yeah. Now that weapon was used for hunting. So I had this hypothesis when I was like putting the system all together: is how did cavemen fight? Because clearly cavemen fought initially against animals, And I found some old pictures and depictions of cavemen holding rocks, smashing things. So look at the shape here.
Mm-hmm.
You grab a rock with your fingers splayed,
Yep.
your arms are outside 90 in my spear shape,
Mm-hmm.
and they're smashing and smashing. And then eventually somebody figured out that a sharp stick could do the job safer from a distance, right? Jamming. And it's this cross extensor chain. And so I've got these old pictures of like from, prehistoric, times of cavemen fighting off animals. Well, approximately 80,000 years ago, according to whoever is guessing this shit, modern man began to roam the planet. Food disappeared here, a volcano happened here, ice age, whatever the hell, all this shit is happening. And there was convergent evolution, right? Different tribes moving around. So imagine, we're sharing a squirrel and we're fucking starving. And we look up at a ridge there and there's 12 guys in pelts like ours, but they're different animal pelts because they're coming from a different region. And they got different long pointy sticks. And this is like The Walking Dead all of a sudden. Right. And for those of you who are fans of, whether you like zombies or not, it's really good writing, because what it's about is just how morally, ethically corrupt people get when they're scared or they're after power and they control the food and they control the safety, right? And it's
desperate kind of would be another word you could throw in there too, when they get desperate.
Yeah. And so I hypothesize that about 80,000 years ago, modern man began fighting other modern men, but they already understood how to smash things with a rock and smash things and stab things with a spear. Do you think that first fight between cavemen tribes, they were doing like,
oh yeah.
No, they're not doing this sword form. And I make this joke, like, after hunting and gathering school, did you drop your kids off at caveman karate? Like, I do this whole shtick where a lot, when I do it live, people laugh. I go, no, what it was primal gross motor movement, driven by instincts, intuition, fueled by fear. And it was all, you knew that we weren't sparring. These people were going to kill me and eat me, or kill my wife, or we were fighting to the death every time. And out of that was this push away danger. That's the impaling movement of a spear, smash you with a rock. And the most powerful movement became this core to extremity movement with my hands here. That's if anyone studied any of the spear system, that's the basis of it. And for people who don't know me, first time listener, SPEAR is an acronym for Spontaneous Protection Enabling Accelerated Response. It's the study of the startle flinch and how to weaponize it, how to turn that into a protective mechanism so that it acts as an organic airbag in a sudden violent encounter.
Sure.
But anyways,
well, and you talked a little bit about how that information, or how those techniques would be transmitted, and I thought of basically like Irish stick fighting. You don't see Irish stick fighting dojos in schools and things like that. Basically, grandpa taught the son or the grandson, like, here's how I didn't get my ass kicked in that last fight. Here's
right.
what I did. And it was handed on,
right.
to the son through families, and it's still around, but it's very hard to find because it's not been commercialized. It's not been turned into, a system or anything like that. And there are different systems because different families had different things that worked and didn't. They purged out the stuff that didn't, and I think the way that it was transmitted worked very similar to that, and they weren't probably very complete, but they did the function they needed to do, and they were probably built on very simple, direct things. Which my own path of Aikido has been to reattach and refine those things that are simple, direct, powerful. And I actually found that same structure that I was even taught, just applied a little bit differently, but I saw the structure that you described there, that same hands forward. We have an exercise that is built on that. It's an interception, and it works great. I mean, I don't think there's much new to the game, but how we look at it is important because
I think you're spot on with how we look at it. Listen, physics is physics. You know, the pyramids are this shape. And that's why they're still standing. Had the pyramids been this shape, they wouldn't be standing. They're this shape, right? So every single martial art has some sort of angle, whether the hands are open or closed, and so the engineering of how the body best protects itself or recruits stability can be discovered by anybody. I think what's important is the original thesis of this talk is if you only practice the movement, like if my students only practiced the spear position, the structure of the spear in a tactical sense, that knowing everything I know, they would still have a problem in a sudden violent encounter because I'm not connecting it to the primal gross motor response of the reactive brain. Sure. That's really, you know, if somebody said, Tony, what's the difference between the Penjak Salat dive, the Aikido, whatever, if you guys have a specific name for that, this you know, rising block in this Japanese martial art. Some guy just posted, I think he was being a goofball, showing you didn't invent this. I had a picture of me doing a half spear, and he posted a picture from his, he's a gunfighting instructor, and he's got like his hands doing that across somebody's throat, and he says cross-check the neck, you know, and he's probably going, look, you're not the only one that does that, because it was all he did is post an ad on my page. I was like, oh, what are you trying to say, man? I've never said like nobody else can figure this out. What's the most important part is the thesis of the statement is that if I said to you, you know, get ready to do that move, and then while you're warming up, I punch you in the face or kick in the balls, you know, or I go, and you go, what do you like? Or I go, you know, say hello to my little friend. And they're like, you're going, and now if a behavioral movement hijacks your complex motor skill, then your system didn't protect you, did it?
Right.
That's the message here, where I look at everything as evidence-based. So we need a holistic approach to understanding physiology, kinesiology, psychology. In the 80s, when I started like going, what's this startle flinch? Holy shit. In one of my little musings, I wrote, this is behaviorally inspired and genetically wired. That became like a little tagline. I go, this is all inspired by behavior. And then I'm looking at the, you know, at the genetic wiring of the survival reflex. So it wasn't like this is a move. In fact, I tell people, because the actual, the half spear, which is one side, or the full spear movement, I mean, like I can launch almost as much power with that as like doing a skip side kick into somebody, because that movement done properly is like the split jerk of self-defense. If you know Olympic lifting, it's incredibly powerful, but it's the least practiced part of what we do. I spend more time with my students explaining you need to do the primal to protective and the conversions, because the only time you will flinch is when you're surprised, which means your situational awareness was compromised. So you are in the most danger. The gravest moment is when you're going, fuck, where did this come from?
Right.
And nobody practices.
Total ambush type scenario.
Yeah. And people don't practice that. They go, it wasn't like, if you surprise somebody in class, like they go, do over, I wasn't ready. It's like, hey,
that's right. You get once, so, that's it.
You know, the bad guy's not going to, you know, send you a text message saying, hey, this is what I'll be wearing 3 o'clock tomorrow at the corner of here. That's when the robbery's happening.
Right.
You know, so.
Well, and a lot of times those, if you'd call them predators, they will often search for the most unaware target, because they can be assured that by the time they do their approach, that they're on their target before the target even knows they're there. Yeah. And like you said, because they want to take away, they want to approach people with no situational awareness or no observation skills. And of course, the cell phone, I think, had to have been God's gift to predators.
True.
because it just totally brings somebody, their universe is that big. It's right in the palm of their hand, and they don't, people will step in front of buses because they are so focused on their phone and whatnot. It's funny. I come from a sport fight background, so I've done a lot of live fights with opponents, and reading a person, even in I'd say kind of sterilized sport fight environment, reading someone's intent and their body language is a skill that I don't think you really get unless you are either in a real defense realm. And I've seen, of course, bouncers and security people are really good at reading and profiling people. The sport realm has got its own kind of way of doing it, because
Sure.
you're in a fight. When they say, okay, it's go time, what's happening. And what you're reading is a little different than somebody who walks in and into an establishment, and they're there to cause trouble, and you can see it.
Right.
They haven't really, it's not game on. But I think that's something that both of those are things that what I call academic martial artists, the ones that focus on the physical aspects, the techniques, the katas, the physical precision. Reading other people is a very crucial skill. And when you have a number of live fights, you can start to see when somebody slips into that zone of they're going into a serious mode of they're wanting to cause trouble. And if you never notice that, I think that's to your point of that the first one of that situational awareness. It's not just where am I or who's here. It's you identified, okay, this person is getting agitated or they are a threat, and I need to handle it. And that reading people and profiling is an important, very important skill.
It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
And that's energetic.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are also pre-contact cues, and
Sure.
it all goes together. And listen, like, to be fair to any martial artist listening to this that might be misinterpreting this, like, are they saying like I'm wasting all my time? No.
Yeah, certainly not. Yeah.
It's the metaphor I like to use is there's a difference between an architect and a handyman, and there's a difference between an architect and a carpenter.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're just playing with tools and getting good at tools, you're like a carpenter, maybe only a handyman. You don't understand the blueprint. You don't understand the big picture. And so it's one of the things, whether somebody's doing like my garage gym with me, which is just training with me virtually, or they're in a live class, or they're in one of our trainer programs, we're teaching them the timeline of violence. We're teaching them the blueprint, so they understand, hey, here's what bad guys want. Here's what they don't want. Here's what goes on at a neurobiological level. Here's some thoughts on the psychology of fear. Here's what happens with the startle flinch. Here's your body's physiology moving. Here's you could, so that you almost get this, like as an architect, I hire an architect and I go, I want to build a house here, but I want it to be right here. And he goes, yeah, if you build it there, you have a problem because the foundation isn't going to support this. And they can see, 30 years into the future when your house is starting to fall down this hill, and they can, and that's what we want, is we to truly to understand the difference between true self-defense and just how to counter this move. You got to be thinking like an architect, not like a carpenter, where you're not trying, I'll fix this I'll brace it here and hammer it here. Mm-hmm. That's just the carpenter visual, right? I need somebody to go, yeah, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And be thinking, and that this metaphorically ties into what we call our 3Ds: detect, defuse, defend. Detect and avoid, defuse and de-escalate, and if push comes to shove, defend. And each one of those Ds has a spiral learning model, mm-hmm. where it's like this coil spring under each one that says, well, you can do this and do this and do this. So each one of them has their own skill set. And think of it as this holistic toolbox, and each one of them is a drawer, and they're all interdependent on each other. So you can't just have it's like somebody who thinks like a social worker, who, you look at all the defund the police now, stuff like that. You can't send a social worker in to solve a violent encounter that's already in progress. The violence is already happening. You're not going to, at that point, you're not going to be going, hey, I wouldn't do that if I were you. Okay, stop stabbing me, please. Let's talk about this, right? So you got to understand this timeline of violence, And there's a time and a place for those verbal de-escalation, behavioral augmentation skill sets. And I tell people this, like, I remember one of my first scenario seminars back in the 80s. I said, hey, the fight's going to happen over here. And at the end of my school, we had this juice bar and the exit. I said, if you can break contact and run to here, that's the safe haven. That's a hospital. That's a police station. That's a crowd of courageous bystanders. And this guy, I'm still friends with him to this day, named Larry, puts up his hand. He says, hey, Mr. Blauer, no disrespect, but I think we all know how to run. I think we came here to learn how to fight. And I said, Larry, the fact that you don't even want to entertain breaking contact and running tells me that your ego and pride might get you in a little bit of trouble. I want everybody here that if you can go slam and move and break contact and run, you need to train that. And so I summarize that by saying that avoiding violence takes courage, mm-hmm. and diffusing it takes courage, and defending yourself takes courage. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think that only the fighting takes courage, but right. To control your emotion, your ego, your pride, and go, okay, something wrong with that guy. I'm not going to race up on his ass and give him the finger in my car. That guy's nuts.
And that kind of is one of those things where, and I like that you brought up the counselor or caseworker, whatever the term that you used was in terms of solving that violence problem. And yeah. I think that, in looking about how does a person, even an average citizen, look at why should I train martial arts, or why should I train to be able to fight and they probably go through this in their head, like my awareness is really good. My de-escalation skills are excellent. I don't run around being a jerk. So why should I actually do the physical training part? And I guess the way that I would look at that, if you looked at those first three as being your mental skills, and the physical part being what happens when those fail, like as best as you can do all of your great things, will those mental skills be as strong if your brain says, I know I cannot handle anything in right. terms of physical? Will you be able to bluff your way, or will you be panicked enough knowing that you don't have anything to fall back on in order to when you're trying to de-escalate, you're trying to do that verbal exchange that's hopefully going to extract you out of a situation? Or will you start to appear scared? To me, that's a strong question, because if you're not confident in your ability, how would you ever think that somebody could not read that on you? If you start to get that fear spike and your voice starts to waver because you really don't have the physical confidence. And that's not to say that somebody, because they train, can run around and just insert themselves into physical fights thinking that they're going to come out of them. I think everybody that I've ever trained with, whether they're martial artists or even people that are good at street fighting and that, like, anything, they know anything can happen. Just because you get in a fight does not mean, no matter how skilled you are, that you're going to come out unscathed. It's best not to get into that. Right. I think that there's some wisdom there and at least for me, I don't know about anybody else, but the more I train to be physically capable, the more I realize, okay, I don't want to have to be physically capable, but if I have to be, I have good training to fall back on for it. And to me, you get there by making sure, and this kind of leads back to something we talked about 10 minutes ago, which is when things start to go south, I want to have trained with attacks that look exactly like the attacks I would normally get, like they would be on that surveillance video of kind of that crazy town right. fight type thing. I want that to be comfortable to me, kind of like handling the rattlesnake. If I handle rattlesnakes all the time, I run across one, it's not a big deal. Yes, you're still going to have the fear. You should definitely still be thinking smart. And this is where I come into one of my favorite sayings was from Erwin Rommel, and he said that sweat saves blood, blood saves lives, and brains save both. And to me, that encapsulates the idea of no matter how much you sweat in your training and how much blood you spill getting better, be smart about it. Don't be an idiot just because you want to run out and go prove how great your training is.
Right. Yeah,
that's,
deep thoughts, interesting. I think the answer to your question or your observation is twofold. Look, there's a lot of people. Your show's probably listened to by people who love martial arts recreationally or professionally.
Mhm.
Um, most of the world doesn't give a shit about martial arts. But in 1986, I wrote an article for Inside Karate magazine, and one of the paragraphs was that there are more people, who get attacked and successfully defend themselves with zero training whatsoever than there ever will be trained people who get attacked and effectively defend themselves. In fact, the opposite is true. There's a lot of trained people get their ass kicked because the predator is in their flow state and they're not moving in a structured or organized violent dance like your sparring setup. So if you're not replicating, so our system, we're very renowned for our ballistic microfight, which is a fancy word for the way we do force on force scenario training, and we only use CCTV and footage of real fights. So there's no sparring. It's like, you're a bad guy, you're a good guy, that's your role, look at this fight, let's break this down. And what we're creating is metacognitive blueprints in the brain, so that you've got a skill set that's addressing something. So you said something interesting, that if you've got the emotional psychological skills but not the physical practical, might you hypothetically appear fearful or hesitate or freeze? Or so my research says it's individual, that there are lots of people who never had any training who fight successfully. In fact, an upcoming post just was in my newsletter yesterday, but coming out this week, where I looked at the CCTV of trained fighters getting in violent encounters, and then video of untrained people getting in encounters. And the commonality was that both of them used primal gross motor, grit, fear management to escape. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like the trained fighter in our A/B test, the trained fighters did this and the untrained fighters did this. They all looked the same, in the moment. And there was very little evidence that the trained fighters fared better. And again, the caveat for people losing their minds listening to that's bullshit was it had to be a truly violent encounter started by the attack. It had to be a surprise to the cop, or a surprise to this doorman, or a surprise to, and then shit would kick off. But what I will agree with, so there, to me, I got like two populations. What can untrained people do, and what can trained people do? If you're listening to this show and you are a martial artist, Aikido or any art, and you are not looking at real violence, then this is kind of heavy and deep, and it's a little neuroscience-y here. We all create an unconscious bias that is nurtured by practicing the martial art we love. If you've been doing Aikido for years, there's no reason why, if I said to you, guy comes up to you, he's got his hand in his jacket, looks like he's got a gun, you're not sure, you gotta hit him and move, stun and run. What do you like? You're gonna go, what are you gonna, there's no reason why you would say, I'm gonna double leg him. Right. If you're not a grappler, there's no reason why you would say, well, I'm going to round kick him in the head if you don't do Taekwondo. There's no reason why you're going to say, I'm going to hit him with a liver shot if you're not a boxer. You will say something from the Aikido arsenal in this hypothetical, because that's what we love. That's what we do. I expect my students to say, well, I'm going to spear that guy. I don't expect them to say, I'm going to do this, this Wing Chun move, right? So because I talk about that, and we do neural pattern disruption drills, I'll make people go, guys, we're going to do this, set up your hands here. And I know they're already thinking about the moves we practice. And then I call another move and there's this glitch and hesitation. And I go, catch that neural that neural programming, because, and here's the heavy line, situational awareness is a conscious cognitive skill.
Mm-hmm.
You have no situational awareness if you're unconscious. You have no situational awareness if you're looking at your phone. You have no situational awareness if you're distracted. Now, the question is, if you're honest, if I'm standing in front of you and you're just standing here like this, right? And you get your arms crossed and I'm going, fuck you, man, I'm threatening you. You're thinking, okay, when he moves, I'm coming up with this move, I'll deflect his arm. And your brain is already trying, that's what the brain does. The brain is looking at patterns.
Right.
So you're unconsciously already, non-conscious level, anticipating how you can insert an Aikido move.
Mm-hmm.
That is changing the accuracy of true situational awareness in the moment, because my brain is now using energy and focus to go, when he does this, I'll do that. I know this is going to work. This is how we practice it. Mm-hmm. So true situational awareness is, like, I look at it really different than most people. And I recognize the unconscious bias. So that was a long detour here, but to circle back to what you're talking about is, if you are a martial artist and you are making the contention that you are also practicing your martial art, not just for spiritual enlightenment, but so that you can protect yourself or your family, if you are not analyzing how bad guys attack good guys, you're creating a greater gap time between stimulus response. So there's a refractory delay between stimulus response. And I need that gap time to be as short as possible. And if I'm not physically practicing something, to go back to what you said, Tristan, it's okay to visualize this and do the de-escalation stuff. But if I physically haven't, you can read the inner book of the game, the inner book of tennis. But if you don't pick up a racket and hit a ball, you have no sensation of what that is. Right. So I think what we're both in agreement of is that, I'm going to go, well, what are the ways I can get attacked? Does my system address that? Okay, how do I turn that into a bit of a scenario so that I'm emotionally, psychologically, and physically educating myself? Now that I know that I've done that, I've got more confidence and maybe even more respect to the physical risk, that I'm going to spend a little bit more energy avoiding it and de-escalating it.
Right. Well, and within there, I like how you described, and I want to stress this because I think that people like yourself, instructors that come from the real world violence, or they often called combatives, things like that, tend to be viewed as, all right, let's just unleash hell on our attacker.
Yeah, we love violence, knuckle draggers.
Right, exactly. And I think a lot of times martial artists, especially from the Aikido realm, tend to kind of turn their nose up at that, thinking that they understand what is being taught or shown or believed, when in fact the belief is inaccurate. Right. I have yet to meet anybody in combatives that just says, yeah, just start beating on somebody's head when they disagree with you, or that, you feel it's necessary. And that's not true. In fact, I think, if we talk for hours, we'd probably find very much agreement on, you do want to de-escalate, you do want to avoid, even before you get to a conflict you can see coming, just veer away from it to just avoid the whole thing entirely.
Sure.
And that, regardless of how vigorous some of the combative stuff can look like, the study of that is for when a situation is so dire that is what needs to happen to get you out of it. And where, smaller, subtler things just are not even options. And I think that's the reason for studies, to have many options. I know within Aikido and quite a few other martial arts are the same way, is they get a little bit too complex, a little bit too intricate. They don't base themselves well on that natural instinct. And that's something that, years ago, I felt was a problem. And I worked with some very experienced people from, backgrounds similar to yours, in real violence, to say, you can't count on any fine motor skills. It's going to be gross motor stuff that's going to save you when things get to that level 8, 9, and 10 intensity violence, ambushes, things like that. And what I found was that using the same type of structure entry, you can use that. And then Aikido comes into, how do you end it? Do you end it in a lock, a control, a throw, a pin, or a shove, and just beat feet out of there. All of those things are options.
Right.
And I think that having many options, that's why we train so much, is to try to have, you know, a good, reliable response that uses the natural motions, and then to be able to have options for how to end it. What would you say about that?
No, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, it's the you've got to have a directive. That's why, you know, your directive needs to be like, my personal directive is I'll do everything I can to avoid a violent encounter, you know, with as little violence occurring to both me and my attacker. That gives me permission to run. It gives me permission to use deadly force if that's what's necessary. If that was the least amount of violence necessary for me to go home safely, but it starts off with a very simple phrase: as little violence as possible to both me and my attacker, morally, ethically, legally. So I look at that. But you've got to, you know, if it's the old, if, you know, all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail type metaphor. Like, if all you're doing is practicing how to get out of a headlock, you only know what to do when somebody gets you in a headlock. You can't spot it, you can't avoid it, you can't diffuse it, you can't de-escalate it.
Yep.
So no, and you know, the flow has to go from primal gross motor to gross motor to complex motor skill. And that's probably the single greatest mistake most technical martial arts make, is all their solutions to violence are complex motor skills, not recognizing that if it's fast, if it's sudden, if it hits you emotionally, psychologically, that's going to change your direct access to your complex motor skills. That's just neuroscience. So, you know, you're kind of screwed if you don't investigate that.
Absolutely. And I think that's the best way to put it, is investigate it and learn about it.
Sure.
And face it. One of the things, and you mentioned this earlier, and I wanted to include it in our conversation, is that of mindset. And this last year and a half with, you know, the whole virus thing has shown me that and I've always felt that there are basically like three types of people that when they meet a crisis, they'll have one of these three types of behaviors. One is the deer in the headlights type. Like, so they just suddenly had no idea what to do. They want to have somebody tell them what to do, or, you know, they just aren't sure. They kind of just freeze and hang, and they're kind of clueless.
You mean like half the world right now?
Pretty much.
Right.
Then you get the hysterical, the ones that just start waving their hands around, screaming. If something really goes sideways, they're almost in your way to try to solve the problem or the crisis that's going on. Just total off the chain hysterical people. I always thought that was a pretty small number, but after this last year, I think it's a bigger number than I thought.
Yeah.
And then the third type, which is the people that shine in a crisis. Like, they can focus, lock down. They put they're still afraid, but they put their fear aside and they don't get into hysterics. They analyze, they realize that there's a sense of urgency. They don't waste their focus or their thoughts. They lock onto the problem and try to solve it. And I think with self-defense, those same profiles of responses are pretty common. And there's so many of the people that have survived violence, you know, will often say the things like, I didn't realize I was in such trouble. They'll say things like, this can't be happening to me, while they're just sitting doing nothing. Like, I can't believe this is going on.
Sure.
And I think that mindset part is a huge thing. And I'm not sure exactly how somebody changes it. Like, let's say they know that they're a deer in the headlights person, where they can go and say, all right, how am I going to change myself into more of a crisis person than a deer in the headlights person? You can, I think, do it, but you have to put yourself in places where you're learning about dealing with crisis, practicing it, you know, being more of an adventurer and not just a type of a placid living, sort of in a safe environment type person. And that has everything to do with that mental choice that you make of, well, what am I going to spend my time doing? But the mindset, like you said, I think is crucial to what your success is going to be. And, you know, I've seen many martial artists that they don't have the mindset, but they want to learn the physical tools, which like you said earlier, you can have some great physical tools, but without the mind to put them together when you need them, they won't perform.
Part of that is the responsibility of the instructor to make sure, like, our stuff always has been holistic. Like, going back to the 80s, we would do, 2-3 hour talks on fear and fear management and scenario analysis. Like, everyone's just sitting on the floor at the school and we're just whiteboarding shit, talking. We didn't even do any jumping jacks or push-ups. Like, no, it's like, hey, this class is all cerebral. In fact, when Panther Productions launched our original series in 1986, the first videotape was called Cerebral Self-Defense, The Mental Edge. And so, and I say that because I want, your audience to understand that anyone who's trained with me has always had this exposure, because I recognized that as the limitation in me and how I behaved. That it didn't matter how good an athlete I was as a wrestler, gymnastics, baseball, whatever, football, that when I dropped the ball, when I screwed up, it was because of my fear, performance anxiety. I understood the mind navigated the body, and I needed to figure out how to reconcile that. And a lot of us have this idea that we are good when we have no fear, and not realizing that almost everybody feels fear. And some people, you said a couple of times, put it to the side, but I prefer to refer to it as make fear work for them, because you can't literally go, I'm just not going to deal with this now. It's like, it feels that way because you go, okay, get focused, man, boom. But what you're really doing is just taking the adrenaline of that fear and you're breathing into it. And you're literally, so anyone not doing any intentional breathing exercises, you need to explore that, because breath control is huge. It can help you regulate your state very, very quickly. But the mindset piece is everything. And I agree with you there, but I want to add that anybody can further develop who they are and become. There's a million stories and books and movies of people who, like, should have been dead, should have stayed in jail, should have never escaped this regime, and now they're wise and successful, or philanthropists, or successful business, and they had the shittiest circumstances. There's a ton of evidence, but here's the thing: if your personal narrative is, I suck, the world sucks, I'll never make it out of here. So how do people do that? How do people, like, even there's going to be a bunch of people who haven't even made it to this part of this talk because you and I pissed them off early, right? I said something, or you said something, and they got defiant and they went, fuck these guys. And they tuned out. We're selective listeners by nature. We're control freaks by nature. If you don't have the self-awareness to recognize the limitation, you can't create the critical thinking to change the situation. Right? So if you don't have that self-awareness to recognize what you're thinking, you cannot create the critical thinking to change your situation. And so that's our whole, everyone I work with, man, it sounds like I'm shamelessly plugging my content, and I am subtly, but this is, if you said to me, listen, I've been doing physical stuff for decades. I've worked with tier 1 special operations group all the way down to soccer moms. One of the only people that's ever been in a women's shelter teaching them. Had all these amazing opportunities. We have gunfighting courses, knife courses, ground, multiple cell, all this stuff. If you said to me, what's your favorite course? I would tell you my no fear course, spelled KNOW. It's all lecture. There's nothing physical. Really? Okay. If you could only teach one course the rest of your life, which one would it be? Would it be the multiple assailant? Would it be your tactical combatives course? Would it be the no fear course? Because if people can't manage their fear, they're not going to manage the fight. And this was like an archaeologist, something I uncovered decades in, where there was convergent evolution in it. My scenario-based training turned into high gear, turned into force and force. The scenario gave way to the startle flinch. What the hell's that? Holy shit, startle flinch, developed a whole spear system. And in recognizing how some students froze and some students fought, it didn't matter their background. I went, I got to help them with that. Just that was me. And I come back to, you might have, I don't know how big your audience is, but a lot of you listening to this don't teach the behavioral, don't do the replication-based scenario training. Standing up in your dojo and saying, okay, let's put on gloves and let's fight just to stress inoculate. That's good, but that's not replication training. Mm-hmm. That's not introducing the type of fear and decision-making at a distance that we need to do. But all of this comes back to any change you want to make. Somebody's listening to this, Tristan, and they go, I don't like this guy Blauer. He's full of himself. I don't like this guy Tristan. What's he saying about Aikido? It sounds like he's criticizing Aikido. Screw these guys. Like, your ability to hold an opposing view in your hands is like an old Fitzgerald quote, right? That the sign of intelligence is the ability to hold an opposing view in your hand and weigh and consider it. I'm messing it up, and go, let me think about that. Let me weigh and consider that. What can I learn? But nobody can do that if they don't have self-awareness.
That's true.
And so the ultimate skill that we can create and cultivate is self-awareness. Like, if you don't know that you're racist or prejudiced or an asshole or a bad drunk, then you're going to say to me every time we bump into each other, so many assholes at that bar. Every Friday night, somebody starts a fight with me and going, dude, you might be the asshole at the bar, right?
That's right.
But you don't know it because it's somebody else's fault.
Right.
Because you don't have the self-awareness to go, why do I keep going back to that bar and getting into fights? So.
Exactly. And one of the things I also wanted to talk about that I saw you wrote up fairly recently, I'm not sure exactly when you wrote it, but the idea of self-defense as a spiritual or holistic practice. And this is, I think, a very close parallel to almost everybody that studies Aikido. They don't do it merely for I want to learn the footwork and the joint locks and the throws. It is a part of how they view themselves. It's an important part. And, different practitioners take on a different flavors, some of that are drastically different flavors. But I think the idea of self-defense being a holistic practice, I've made that a part of my study. And the way that I've approached it is to try to address these holes that I felt that the physical art had. And one of them, when you asked me about the knife, one of the reasons I had to think about it was I had a huge crisis of faith with what I saw and what I was taught with knife defenses in Aikido. And I had to pretty much dump the whole thing and start with something that was, I would trust more than I would trust what I was shown. And I'm not the only one. There are quite a few other Aikido practitioners and instructors that have had the same experience. When I know Josh Gold at Aikido Journal got together with Jeff Imada, who was a very famous knife martial artist, and pretty much tore apart everything that Aikido did. It proved to be completely useless. And so, it's one of those things. I identified it as a hole and it's like, okay, now we need to go fill the hole. Let's figure out what's the best thing that fits in here to do that. And the same thing with, working on the ground or situational awareness, how to think on a strategic level, be observant. Those things are, I think, things a instructor who takes the development of his students seriously will look at and just say it's not acceptable to have these holes in what we're training. There should be an answer for that, or I should be able to convey and educate my students on these things. So that's why when I saw you talked about self-defense as a spiritual holistic practice, that resonated with me.
Yeah, sorry, man, there's people buzzing me going,
no worries.
Next meeting.
Yep.
That's where it gets to. When people first come to study self-defense, it's not about self-actualization and we have a program called Be Your Own Bodyguard. It's a one-day course. It's taught with the exact same focus and efficiency as a first aid course.
Sure.
And if I said to you, if you didn't know me and I said, can you learn self-defense in a day? You'd probably go, no, who said that? that sounds ridiculous to people. But if I said to you, can you learn how to put on a tourniquet, clear a pathway, do CPR mouth to mouth, learn some basic, medical stuff in a day? If you know anything about a first aid course, not only can you do it in a day, you can do it in a half a day. And that's what paramedics and EMS people do. And so you can learn detect, diffuse, defend, and core to extremity, startle, flinch, conversion, how to push away danger, and develop an internal directive. And one of the questions that we insert in the class and go over is, what would it cost you if you didn't fight back? And we get into this whole spiritual value connection of, wait a minute, this is bigger than, did I do this move right? Sure. In fact, one of the things I wanted to mention earlier, but in the traditional martial art approach to self-defense, the single greatest hindrance is this fixation on technique. Mm-hmm. And that your fixation on technique might be the greatest cause of your inability and hesitation to get tactical, because everything needs to be so perfect in your mind. And it's that hang on, I'm not ready. I was just writing about this morning. How many times in our life do we say, hold on, I'm not ready? Well, those are famous last words in a violent encounter. If violence loves speed, hold on a sec, I'm not ready. You could be at the range, beep, hold on a sec, I wasn't ready, right? Like, who's going to beep you in a gunfight? Right? Hold on, I wasn't, you're playing with a knife. How many times are you cut by a smart ass partner? Mm-hmm. Right? You're doing some stuff with chalk or markers, and they go, you're doing, man, the drill didn't start yet. Oh, you weren't ready. Okay, get ready. And this is the big flaw that we all make. And it doesn't mean that we should jump around like Clouseau in the
Kato, yeah,
or even in the Pink Panther. I was thinking, right, how he would always jump out of the closet and attack Clouseau. So it's an interesting thing. I think that our Be Your Own Bodyguard course was for people who don't want to learn martial arts, and they just want to know, how do I get the hell away from danger as quickly as possible? And then we teach them how to fight using just primal gross motor directives. Now someone goes, this is interesting, I'm interested in more. They get into more of a flow. We've had people, I can think of a bunch of like women in our garage gym program who came in there to learn how to manage and look at violence during the last year. They got really kind of nervous about what was going on in the world, as they should, right? I mean, while the media has turned into a circus and has way overstepped the bounds of even the best propaganda of the day. I mean, it's atrocious where it's at. The reality is they're still using images of real shit going on, even if it's amplified. Mm-hmm. It's still real shit, and we should all be aware, detect, diffuse, defend. So I've had these people, men and women, but a lot of women, who came in just to learn this stuff, thinking they were going to be just training with me for a month or two, stayed in, and now they're down 20 pounds, and now stayed in, and a year later, they're exchanging emails. I got one from a guy in Australia who used our fear management system to help his 16-year-old daughter overcome some fear of a big math exam. And he said, I can't even tell you how grateful it is as a dad to help my daughter and pass on this. This is a life skill for her. No. And you're like that's self-actualization. It's not like I'm levitating under a tree or in a cave, but somebody going, I'm a better parent right now, and my daughter's better prepared. Like, that's self-actualization. I got goosebumps just, but that's where this goes,
Well, yeah. And I think you're right. I've having taught some single standalone self-defense classes, both, normal ones and also ones specifically for women, even did ones where I had some blind people that came in. The great thing about that, when they experience what it's like to find out what they're really capable of doing, that they're more powerful than they thought they were, just because they didn't know how to do it. And they have somebody show it to them, and they walk out and they go, that was great. That was a lot of fun. Because martial arts training, especially as people watch YouTube videos, they think it looks brutal or vicious, or, like it's not fun. You're just getting beaten on or thrown around. And they often, I think, kind of they don't find much interest in that. And like you said earlier, you said martial arts really are not that popular. But I think for those people that sample it and try it and realize that it is actually enjoyable, getting nourishment of the growth of your own mind, your body, and your spirit kind of all together, it resonates with them when they know that they are a better person, they're more capable, they're more confident, all of these things. It surprises me that it's martial arts and training like this is not more popular, and there's more interest. And I think you're right, as the world starts getting even crazier, maybe we will see some more interest.
Hopefully. I think we need to reframe and inspire a lot of instructors. The instructors need to have the capacity to share this stuff, and that requires some again, self-awareness, and then research, and not be afraid. In the martial arts world, there's a lot of that fear of like, I don't want to, like this extreme loyalty to an art or a system that was created hundreds of years ago, when mindset, evolution, and violence were completely different. Like your experience with the knife work, back when the knife element of Aikido was developed, maybe it was realistic because people only ever said, "Give me your wallet," and it was like, well, I'm fucking doing this, right? And maybe it wasn't, but it's not the same. And then anyway, so I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. I gotta,
that could be its own show. Like, our martial arts get stuck as a snapshot in time. And I think to a certain degree they do, especially
somewhere,
for
sure.
The Eastern Oriental, Eastern Asian.
And listen, there's nothing wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing wrong with it. You can, like those medieval games, you can go, wow, that's fascinating. I don't want to fight with a javelin, and I want to do this with a sword. And you can do that for cultural reasons and emotional, psychological reasons. And there is some transfer to the physicality of the violence and all of that. But if three guys break into your house and they've all got Glocks, you running and getting your sword out of the garage, or the room, you may fuck them up. But listen, that round's moving 1,200 feet per second or 900 feet per second, depending on the caliber. You've got to understand contemporary violence.
Yeah, I totally agree. So, well, I think this gets us to a good wrap-up point. Did you want to end with any last words, any comments? Or
no, man, this was fun. We got spiritual, we got philosophical, we got a little technical, we got a little tactical.
Absolutely.
I think it's good. My only message, again, I'm not knowing your demographics. Are they students? Are they instructors? Are they both? Is
I think some of both. Yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's checking out the resources I provide or somebody else, it's continually looking at the things that you don't know that might be assets to improve, your journey. And, if you're an instructor and you're telling your students, hey, we're teaching practical, realistic self-defense, and you're not, that's a moral, ethical, even possibly even a legal concern. There's a duty of care element. I'm telling people to do this in this crisis situation, and I have no idea if it works.
Yeah.
Right. And if you're a student, listen, you may love Aikido or jiu-jitsu or MMA or boxing or any art. If you should have zero pressure or guilt imposed or assumed on you for exploring other things that you think are going to make you a better, safer father, mother, husband, wife, human. And so at the end of the day, I always tell people, in your fight, your point, you're the first responder in your confrontation. And then when the shit hits the fan, you don't have time to dial 911. You need to make shit happen right there. You can't call up your instructor and you can't YouTube what to do. Like things have to happen. And I tell all my students all the time, hope I bump into you in 10 years from now and you go, I never had to use this stuff. But guess what? You're tactically fit, you're more confident, you're more situationally aware, and you're probably a better leader as a result of that. I mean,
Absolutely.
that goes back to what you said, Tristan, about, a crisis. You got like the people that are like, fuck, what do we do? The people that get hysterical, and people go, okay, we're in a crisis. We got to get tactical.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And, it disappoints me when I see instructors limit their students by saying, don't go investigate these things. Don't build bridges to other
That's fear.
experts
That's all fear.
that can help you learn more. And, because I think every living entity is either growing or it's dying. There's no hanging in the middle. So, always, to me, go for the growth, because the other one is not a very good option.
Oh, sir.
So, well, Tony, thank you very much. This has been a great
man.
conversation. I
Enjoyed it.
really
Thank you,
appreciate
buddy.
it. I appreciate your time, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah. Thank you.
You bet. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this discussion. Stay tuned for more episodes. I've got some great stuff on the way very soon. In the meantime, enjoy your training.